Beneath a rocky overhang in Puget Sound, something remarkable is happening. An arm extends from a crevice, just one arm. The body remains hidden, tucked safely in shadow. The arm moves with purpose, exploring the surface of a clamshell wedged between stones. Suckers taste the shell's edge. Sensitive skin reads texture, temperature, salinity. The arm is thinking. This isn't metaphor. This arm contains its own neural network, a cluster of ganglia processing information independently, making decisions without consulting the central brain. 200 million neurons reside in the 8 arms of an octopus. The brain itself? Only 40 million. The majority of an octopus's intelligence lives not in its head, but in its limbs. The arm finds a gap in the shell, probes it, tests resistance, determines the clamshell can be pried open with leverage applied at precisely this angle. The arm doesn't send this information back to the brain for approval. It simply acts. Wedges a sucker into the gap, pulls. The shell opens. This is distributed intelligence, a mind fragmented across a body, each piece capable of independent thought, yet coordinated toward common purpose. Evolution arrived at this solution over 300 million years, long before vertebrate brains grew complex. The octopus doesn't think like us. It thinks with hands that don't need asking. Tonight, we'll explore the octopus, camouflage artist, escape specialist, tool user, problem solver. A creature so alien in its architecture that studying it reveals not just how intelligence can evolve, but how many different forms it might take. But before we journey through deep time and stranger adaptations, let's meet someone living this story right now. In the cold waters off Whidbey Island, northern Puget Sound, a giant Pacific octopus stirs in her den. She's 3 years old, mature, experienced, but not yet at the end of her short life. Her den is a narrow space beneath a boulder, opening to a small midden of discarded crab shells, evidence of successful hunts. She's been here for 4 months. The den suits her. Good visibility, strong current bringing scent, multiple exit routes if needed. Morning light filters down through 30 feet of water, shifting green and grey. She extends one arm into the current. Testing. We'll check in on her as her day unfolds. But first, we need to understand the evolutionary path that led to this moment. How a relative of snails and clams became one of the ocean's most sophisticated hunters. Welcome to Rest with the Wild. If you enjoy these journeys into the natural world, please hit subscribe. Each new episode is a deep dive into nature's most compelling stories, told for rest. The octopus belongs to Cephalopoda, a class of mollusks that includes squid, cuttlefish, and nautilus. The name translates to headfoot, describing their basic architecture, a head surrounded by appendages that evolved from the muscular foot of ancestral mollusks. Somewhere around 500 million years ago, these ancestors began an extraordinary transformation. Early cephalopods possessed external shells, protection against the Cambrian Ocean's growing number of predators. But protection comes with cost. Shells are heavy. They limit speed, restrict flexibility, anchor an animal to a particular way of moving through water. Some lineages kept their shells and became excellent at what shells allow. The nautilus still thrives with this ancient design. Others took a different path. The ancestors of modern octopuses began internalizing their shells, then reducing them, then losing them entirely. This happened gradually over millions of years, but the implications were immediate, with each incremental change. A lighter body moves faster. A flexible body squeezes into smaller spaces. An animal without armor must become cleverer about defense. The loss of the shell created evolutionary pressure for intelligence. Without armor, survival demanded new strategies: camouflage, problem solving, memory. the ability to learn from experience and adjust behavior accordingly. The cephalopod brain began to grow, especially in the regions processing visual information and controlling movement. But here's where octopus evolution diverged from almost every other intelligent animal on Earth. Instead of centralizing all processing in one location, octopuses distributed cognition throughout their bodies. Each arm developed its own neural cluster, a ganglion containing millions of neurons capable of processing sensory input and coordinating complex movement. These aren't simple reflex centers, they're semi-autonomous computational units. Research conducted at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem demonstrated this beautifully. Scientists presented octopuses with a task: reach into a maze to retrieve food. They filmed the arms at high speed. What they observed challenged assumptions about how brains control limbs. When an octopus reaches for something, the central brain doesn't micromanage the arm's movement. Instead, it issues a general command, something like retrieve food from that location. The arm's ganglion then handles the specifics: which suckers to engage, which muscles to contract, how to navigate around obstacles, what angle of approach works best. The arm thinks through the problem locally. This creates remarkable flexibility. An octopus can send multiple arms on different tasks simultaneously. One arm hunting in a crevice, another manipulating a shell for shelter, a third keeping watch, a fourth cleaning the mantle. The central brain doesn't juggle all these actions. It delegates. The brain's role becomes coordination rather than control. It sets priorities, integrates sensory information from all 8 arms, makes high-level decisions about where to move, when to hide, what to hunt. But the actual execution, that's distributed across the ganglia. This matters because octopus arms face complex challenges. Unlike rigid vertebrate limbs with joints at fixed points, an octopus arm is a muscular hydrostat. Think of a tongue or an elephant's trunk. It can bend at any point along its length in any direction, creating nearly infinite possible configurations. Controlling such a limb from a central processor would require impossibly complex calculations for every movement. But with local intelligence, the arm solves its own geometric puzzles. The ganglion knows where each sucker is in space, what it's touching, how much force is being applied. It coordinates muscle contractions to produce the desired movement without burdening the brain with details. This is parallel processing in flesh. The central brain, located between the eyes, contains roughly 40 million neurons, a respectable number, comparable to a dog's brain. But those 200 million neurons in the arms make the total neuron count rival that of many vertebrates. The octopus isn't just intelligent, it's intelligent in a fundamentally different way, with cognition spread across its body like a neural net. Communication between brain and arm ganglia happens through nerve cords, but it's not constant chatter. The arms report key information: contact with food, texture of substrate, presence of threats. The brain sends executive commands. In between, the arms operate with surprising autonomy. Researchers have observed severed octopus arms, sadly, from specimens that died naturally or in predator encounters, continuing to hunt and capture prey for up to an hour after separation from the body. The arm's ganglion keeps processing sensory input, keeps coordinating suckers, keeps executing learned behaviors even without the brain's input. This isn't mere reflex, it's persistence of purpose at the local level. The octopus's 3 hearts support this distributed system. 2 branchial hearts pump blood through the gills, oxygenating it. 1 systemic heart pumps that oxygenated blood through the body. But here's a curious detail. The systemic heart stops beating when the octopus swims. The branchial hearts continue, but the main heart pauses. This makes swimming energetically expensive for an octopus. They prefer to crawl, walk, or jet only in short bursts. When they move, They move deliberately, conserving energy for the intensive work of thinking, both centrally and peripherally. The blood itself carries hemokinin rather than hemoglobin. Hemokinin uses copper instead of iron to bind oxygen, making octopus blood blue when oxygenated. It's less efficient than hemoglobin in warm water, but works beautifully in cold environments where many octopus species thrive. This entire system, distributed nervous system, 3 hearts, copper-based blood, represents a body plan utterly different from vertebrate intelligence. We centralize cognition in a brain protected by a skull. Octopuses distribute it across exposed flesh. We have rigid endoskeletons providing structure. They rely on muscle and water pressure. We evolved intelligence through one path. They found another. When we search for intelligence in the universe, we often imagine it will look like us, centralized, protected, built on similar neural architecture. The octopus suggests intelligence can take forms we barely recognize, can emerge from evolutionary pressures we haven't considered, can solve problems using strategies we wouldn't think possible. Their arms don't just follow orders, they contribute to decisions. This distributed mind emerged from specific environmental pressures. Life in complex 3-dimensional reef environments, where opportunities and threats come from every direction simultaneously, where resources are scattered and must be found through exploration, where predators are abundant and escape requires both speed and innovation. In such an environment, a centralized brain processing every decision becomes a bottleneck. Better to delegate, to trust local processing, to let the arms participate in cognition. The result is an animal that can hunt with one arm while defending with another, that can explore multiple crevices simultaneously, that can process vast amounts of tactile and chemical information in parallel. 8 hands, each with a mind of its own, coordinated by a central executive that sets goals, but trusts the details to local expertise. This is the foundation of octopus intelligence, not a single brilliant brain, but a council of neural networks collaborating towards survival. Meanwhile, off Whidbey Island, those same ancient adaptations unfold in real time. She's left the den now, moving across rock. Each arm samples the substrate independently. One tastes algae, another detects a small crab 2 meters away through chemical signature alone. A third probes a crevice while a fourth anchors her against the current. Her central brain isn't directing these individual explorations. It's receiving reports, prioritizing signals. The crab gets priority. 2 arms shift toward it while the others continue their search patterns. She flows over the rock like thinking water, each arm a question asked of the environment. The crab doesn't sense her approach. She's too slow, too deliberate. When she's close enough, 3 arms move simultaneously, surrounding, cutting off escape routes. The crab tries to run, too late. Her arms converge. It's over in seconds. She doesn't eat immediately. First, she carries the crab back toward her den, moving carefully through open territory where harbor seals sometimes hunt. 1 arm grips the prey. The other 7 navigate, taste, watch. Back at the den, she settles into the entrance. Safe. The crab will sustain her for hours of work ahead. Den maintenance, midden organization, the constant small tasks of survival. Her day continues, as does our story. But to understand what happens next, we need to explore how that intelligence gets applied to one of nature's most demanding challenges: solving problems in real time. Intelligence becomes visible through behavior. For octopuses, that visibility comes in moments of problem solving, when they encounter obstacles and improvise solutions. In the wild, off the coast of Indonesia, researchers documented a veined octopus carrying coconut shell halves. Not for food, the shells were empty. The octopus held them awkwardly while moving across open sand, a journey that left it exposed and vulnerable. Then, when it found a suitable location, It assembled the two halves into a shelter and disappeared inside. This is tool use. The octopus anticipated future need, transported materials to a distant location, and constructed protection. It paid an immediate cost, exposure, energy expenditure, awkward movement, for delayed benefit. Tool use was once considered a distinctly primate behavior, then a vertebrate behavior, then a sign of complex cognition found only in birds and mammals. The octopus, with its distributed mollusk brain, does it routinely. Giant Pacific octopuses in Puget Sound use rocks and shells similarly. They'll select a flat rock, carry it back to their den, and position it to narrow the entrance, reducing the opening to exactly their body width. This keeps larger predators out, while still allowing water flow for respiration. Some individuals take this further. They'll stack multiple rocks, creating a wall. Then, when they leave the den to hunt, they'll pull one rock in behind them, barricading themselves inside. From outside, the den appears to be simply a gap between stones. The octopus has made itself architecturally invisible. But tool use in the wild, while impressive, is hard to study systematically. Researchers turn to captivity to ask more precise questions. What problems can octopuses solve? How do they approach novel challenges? What do their solutions reveal about cognition? The jar experiment became famous. An octopus is presented with a sealed jar containing a crab, visible through the glass, scent leaking through microscopic gaps in the lid. The octopus has never seen a screw-top jar before. It has no inherited knowledge of how human containers work. It explores the jar with its arms. Suckers taste the glass, finding nothing. They move to the lid, detecting stronger scent. The octopus grips the lid, pulls. It doesn't open, pulls harder, still sealed. Then, and this is where behavior becomes fascinating, the octopus changes strategy. Instead of pulling, it twists. The first twist might go the wrong direction, tightening the lid, but tactile feedback tells the octopus something changed. The lid moved slightly. It reverses direction, twists the other way. The lid loosens. A few more twists, and the lid comes free. The octopus has reverse-engineered human engineering through trial and error. Different individuals approach this differently. Some solve it in minutes. Others take hours but eventually succeed. A few never solve it, but those that do remember. Present the same octopus with another jar days later, and it goes straight to twisting the lid. The solution has been learned, stored, recalled. Tawait. Memory in octopuses appears to be both short-term and long-term. Short-term memory helps them navigate complex reefs. They can remember which crevices they've already searched, avoiding redundant exploration. Long-term memory stores information about den locations, hunting grounds, and solutions to problems. In maze studies, octopuses learn routes quickly. A T-maze offers two paths. One leads to food, one to nothing. An octopus tries both, finds the food, and on subsequent trials consistently chooses the correct path. This is spatial learning, but they go further. If researchers switch the reward location, octopuses notice within 1 or 2 trials and update their behavior. This is flexible learning, not just memorizing a pattern, but understanding the rule and adjusting when the rule changes. Some researchers argue this demonstrates concept learning. The octopus isn't just remembering turn left at this rock. It's learning food appears in specific locations, and those locations can change, so pay attention to current conditions. This level of cognition requires the integration of sensory input with memory, then using that integrated information to predict outcomes and choose behaviors. It's the same cognitive toolkit that allows crows to solve multi-step puzzles and primates to use symbolic reasoning. The octopus achieves it with a fundamentally different neural architecture. One of the most compelling demonstrations of octopus problem-solving comes from play behavior. Play, interaction with objects or environments not for immediate survival benefit, is rare in invertebrates. It suggests curiosity, exploration for its own sake, a mind engaged with novelty. Octopuses in enriched captive environments will manipulate objects with no food value. They'll push floating balls, pull apart structures humans provide, investigate new items placed in their tanks. This isn't feeding behavior, it's not mating or aggression or territoriality. It appears to be investigation driven by interest. When given a puzzle box, a container with multiple latches and compartments, some octopuses work at it persistently, trying different approaches even after obtaining the food reward. They continue manipulating the box, opening and closing compartments, as if the puzzle itself holds value. This hints at something beyond stimulus response. It suggests motivation that isn't purely about immediate survival needs, a trace of what we might cautiously call curiosity. But we must be careful with such terms. Anthropomorphism is the constant risk when studying animal cognition. We see an octopus solve a puzzle and project human-like satisfaction or curiosity onto the behavior. The octopus may experience something entirely different, a neurological reward for novel stimulation perhaps, or a behavioral drive we have no words for. What we can say with certainty: octopuses approach problems flexibly, learn from experience, remember solutions, and engage with their environment in ways that go beyond simple survival routines. Their learning has limits though. They struggle with certain abstract concepts. Observational learning, watching another octopus solve a problem and then imitating the solution, appears weak or absent. Each individual must learn through direct experience. This makes sense given their life history. Octopuses are largely solitary. They don't raise young or live in social groups where knowledge transfer would provide evolutionary advantage. Their intelligence evolved for individual survival, not cultural transmission. Yet within those constraints, they're remarkable. They take coconuts meant for human consumption and repurpose them as mobile homes. They decode the logic of screw threads through touch. They remember the geography of complex reefs and the habits of prey. They turn their environment into a toolkit and their experiences into education. All of this from a brain distributed across 8 thinking arms, a mind that solves problems not through centralized processing, but through collaborative intelligence spread across a body that itself participates in thought. The same principles apply whether the octopus faces a jar in a laboratory or a crevice on a reef. Exploration, feedback, adjustment, memory. These are the tools that allow survival in an ocean full of locked doors and hidden opportunities. An octopus doesn't just think with its arms, it thinks with its skin. The skin of an octopus is an organ of transformation, a living display capable of changing color, pattern, and texture in milliseconds. This isn't passive camouflage like a chameleon's slow shift or a flounder's gradual blending. This is active computation happening across the entire surface of the body. The system has 3 layers working in concert. The outermost layer contains chromatophores, sacs of pigment surrounded by muscle cells. Each chromatophore is tiny, barely visible to the naked eye, but an octopus possesses millions of them. When the muscles contract, they pull the sac open like drawing a curtain, spreading pigment across a wider area. When the muscles relax, the sac contracts, concentrating the pigment into an invisible point. Red chromatophores, yellow chromatophores, brown chromatophores. An octopus has no blue or green pigment cells, yet it can appear blue or green through the layers beneath. Below the chromatophores lie iridophores, cells containing plates of reflective protein that act like biological mirrors. They don't create color through pigment, but through structural interference, the same physics that makes soap bubbles shimmer. Iridophores can be tuned to reflect specific wavelengths, producing blues, greens, and metallic sheens. Deeper still, leucophores scatter light diffusely, creating white tones and helping blend the layers above into coherent patterns. These 3 systems, pigment, reflection, scattering, combine to produce virtually any color and pattern found in the octopus's environment. The chromatophores provide fast, high-contrast changes. The iridophores add iridescence and color range. The leucophores soften transitions and create highlights. But color is only half the system. Texture matters equally. Beneath the skin, an octopus possesses papillae, muscular projections that can be raised or lowered independently. When raised, they create bumps, ridges, horns, even branching structures that mimic coral or algae. When flattened, the skin becomes smooth as glass. An octopus can transform from a smooth, flowing shape to a spiky, rough texture in under a second. This isn't just visual camouflage, it's tactile camouflage, defeating predators that hunt by touch in dark water. The control system for all this is staggering in its complexity. So, each chromatophore connects to multiple nerve fibers. The brain sends signals, but, true to octopus design, much of the control is distributed. Chromatophore patterns can be generated locally in the skin itself, responding to visual input without waiting for central processing. Research has shown that octopus skin contains light-sensitive proteins similar to those in the eyes. The skin can see light and dark without sending information to the brain. It makes local adjustments based on local conditions, a form of dermal cognition. This allows for speed. When an octopus needs to vanish, it doesn't wait for the brain to analyze the background, formulate a pattern, and send detailed instructions to millions of chromatophores. Instead, the skin reads the environment and responds directly. The patterns themselves follow rules observed across many camouflaging species. Disruptive coloration breaks up the body's outline, bold patches of light and dark that make it hard to perceive the animal as a unified shape. Background matching blends the animal into substrate. Motion dazzle creates shifting patterns that confuse predators trying to track movement. But octopuses add something extra. Dynamic patterns that shift as the animal moves, maintaining camouflage even during activity. An octopus crawling across varied terrain, rock to sand to kelp, will update its appearance continuously, matching each substrate as it passes. This requires not just sophisticated hardware, but sophisticated software. The brain must maintain a model of the body's position, the background's appearance, and the desired pattern, updating all three in real time. Interestingly, most octopuses are colorblind. They possess only one type of photoreceptor in their eyes, unable to distinguish wavelengths the way humans do. Yet they match colors precisely. How? One hypothesis suggests they use chromatic aberration, the way lenses focus different wavelengths at slightly different distances. By adjusting focus, an octopus might infer color information from blur patterns. Another theory proposes the skin's light sensors provide color data that the eyes cannot. The truth may involve both mechanisms, plus strategies researchers haven't yet identified. What's clear is that octopuses solve the color matching problem despite lacking the tools we'd assume necessary. The speed of change is perhaps the most remarkable feature. An octopus pursued by a predator can cycle through multiple patterns in seconds. Bold warning display to perfect camouflage to startling flash of white, each transformation instant and complete. High-speed footage reveals the mechanics, chromatophores opening and closing in waves across the skin, creating traveling patterns that ripple along the arms and mantle, papillae rising and falling in coordinated sequences, the entire skin surface acting as one integrated display. This is computation without a processor, a distributed system where the calculating and the display are the same organ. Different species show different specializations. The mimic octopus can impersonate other animals, flatfish, lionfish, sea snakes, not just matching color, but adopting posture and movement patterns. The Caribbean reef octopus displays sleeping patterns, changing color rhythmically, even while unconscious, suggesting dreams or neural processing during rest. Giant Pacific octopuses our character's species, tend toward mottled reds and browns when relaxed, stark white when startled, deep red when agitated. But these are tendencies, not rules. Individual octopuses show individual preferences, personality expressed through skin. The system serves multiple functions beyond camouflage. Communication between octopuses happens through skin patterns, threat displays, courtship signals, submission gestures. In species that occasionally encounter one another, a vocabulary of skin has evolved. Some patterns appear to be emotional, or at least correlated with internal states. An octopus solving a difficult puzzle might show traveling waves of color. An octopus startled by a sudden movement flashes pale. An octopus defending its den darkens to near black. Whether these represent emotions as we understand them or simply autonomic responses remains unknown, but they reveal a creature whose internal state is literally written on its surface, a mind that cannot help but express itself through its skin. This creates vulnerability. An octopus cannot hide what it's thinking, at least not from those who learn to read the patterns. Predators likely use skin displays to assess an octopus's awareness and readiness. Other octopuses certainly do, and fight and all. Yet the system's benefits outweigh its costs. In a world where visibility means death, the ability to disappear at will is worth advertising your mood to those paying close attention. The skin computer runs continuously, processing light, generating patterns, updating displays. It's one more layer of the octopus's distributed intelligence, not just brain and arms, but skin itself participating in the work of survival. The octopus possesses the hardware for camouflage. How it deploys that hardware reveals strategic thinking, choices about when to hide, when to flee, when to bluff. The simplest strategy is background matching. The octopus analyzes the substrate beneath it and becomes that substrate. On sand, it smooths its skin and lightens to pale tan. On rock, it darkens and raises papillae to match texture. On coral, it adopts complex mottling with highlights and shadows mimicking the branching structures. This works when the background is uniform or when the octopus remains still. But movement creates problems. A moving octopus must constantly update its camouflage. Researchers tracking wild octopuses found they change patterns an average of every few seconds when crossing varied terrain. Each change is complete, not a fade from one pattern to another, but an instant replacement. This suggests the skin maintains a library of patterns ready to deploy. The brain selects the appropriate pattern based on current substrate, and the skin executes it. The selection happens faster than conscious thought would allow, pointing again to distributed processing. Some octopuses take background matching further. The algae octopus, found in shallow Indo-Pacific reefs, grows its camouflage. It encourages algae to colonize its skin, becoming a living garden that sways with the current. This is camouflage that improves with time, as the algae spreads and diversifies. When background matching isn't enough, octopuses employ disruptive coloration. This strategy doesn't try to blend in. It tries to break up the outline of the body, making it hard for a predator to recognize the shape as an octopus. Bold patches of white or black appear on the mantle. Stripes run across arms at angles that don't match body contours. Eye spots appear on unexpected locations, drawing attention away from the real eyes. The overall effect is visual chaos, pattern without form. Birds hunting visually struggle with this. A seabird scanning the shallows might see the bold patches, but the brain fails to integrate them into octopus. It reads them as rocks, shells, patches of light, anything but prey. So, motion dazzle takes this further. When an octopus must move through open water, a dangerous exposure, it sometimes adopts high-contrast patterns that shift as it swims. Stripes appear to rotate. Patches seem to slide across the skin. The effect confuses predators trying to track the animal's trajectory. This doesn't make the octopus invisible. It makes the octopus's path unpredictable. A predator lunges where the octopus was, not where it is. Researchers testing this with artificial predators, cameras programmed to track moving objects, found that motion dazzle reduced tracking accuracy by nearly 40%. The predator sees the prey, but can't predict its position long enough to strike effectively. Shadow control is subtler, but equally important. An octopus on a rock casts a shadow. That shadow, if it doesn't match the rock's contours, reveals the octopus's presence. So some species extend their webbing, the thin membrane connecting the arms, to eliminate shadow gaps. Others position their arms to redirect shadows, making them fall where a rock's shadow would naturally occur. This is camouflage that considers light direction, substrate geometry, and the predator's viewing angle. It's environmental physics solved through posture. The mimic octopus represents the extreme end of camouflage strategies. Found in Indonesian waters, it doesn't just match backgrounds, it impersonates other animals. When threatened by a predator that hunts octopuses but avoids flatfish, the mimic octopus tucks 6 arms into its body, extends 2 arms in opposite directions, and glides close to the sand. The silhouette reads as flatfish. The behavior reinforces the illusion. When the threat is a predator that avoids lionfish with their venomous spines, the mimic octopus fans its arms, raises them in a spiky crown, and hovers in place. The pattern shifts to red and white stripes. It's a convincing lionfish impression, delivered by an animal with no bones and no venom. Most remarkably, it impersonates sea snakes. It hides its body in a crevice and sends 2 arms out, striped black and white, undulating like swimming snakes. Many predators avoid sea snakes. The mimic octopus exploits that learned avoidance. This is more than camouflage. It's targeted deception based on predator identity. The octopus recognizes what's hunting it and chooses the appropriate disguise. This requires a mental model of how predators perceive threats, a theory of mind, or at least its behavioral equivalent. Not all vanishing acts rely on pattern. Some octopuses use architecture. The day octopus, despite its name, is active at dusk and dawn. It creates shelter by gathering rubble, shells, rocks, coral fragments, and arranging them into a protective ring around its body. From above, the octopus is invisible, buried in debris. Only the tips of its arms protrude, sampling the water for chemical cues. This combines tool use with camouflage. The octopus doesn't become the background. It builds the background around itself. When camouflage fails and a predator closes in, octopuses have a final strategy: the blanch. The entire body flashes to brilliant white, then back to pattern, sometimes multiple times per second. This strobing effect startles predators, creating a moment of hesitation. In that moment, the octopus jets away, often releasing ink. But even color change has trade-offs. It's energetically expensive. The muscles controlling chromatophores consume energy. The neural processing consumes energy. An octopus holding complex camouflage for extended periods must balance the cost against the benefit. Studies measuring metabolic rates found that active camouflage increases energy expenditure by about 15%. That's significant for an animal that already operates on thin margins, especially in cold water where metabolism runs slower. So octopuses don't stay camouflaged constantly. When they feel safe, in their dens, at night, among familiar territory, they relax into neutral patterns. They save the intensive camouflage for moments of threat. This is strategic cognition, assessing risk, weighing costs, making decisions about when to invest in defense. The octopus's camouflage abilities have made it a subject of biomimetic research. Engineers study the chromatophore system to develop adaptive fabrics. Material scientists examine the iridophore structure for color-shifting surfaces. Robotics researchers look at the papillae for texture-changing materials. The octopus didn't evolve these systems for human benefit, but we benefit nonetheless. Nature solved the problem of adaptive camouflage millions of years before we thought to ask the question. What emerges from studying octopus camouflage is a picture of an animal in constant negotiation with visibility. It can vanish, but vanishing has costs. It can advertise, but advertising attracts attention. Every pattern is a choice. Every choice a balance between competing pressures. The octopus navigates this balance moment by moment, pattern by pattern, using skin as language and camouflage as grammar. In doing so, it reveals that intelligence includes not just problem solving and memory, but the ability to manage one's own appearance, to control how the world sees you. This is self-presentation as survival strategy, implemented through a skin that computes. An octopus's territory is not merely space, it's memory inscribed in geography. When a giant Pacific octopus settles into a den, it begins mapping. The process is gradual, unfolding over weeks as the octopus explores radiating routes from home. Each expedition imprints information. This crevice usually holds crabs, that overhang shelters, rockfish. This kelp bed attracts schooling fish at dawn. The octopus doesn't just wander. It develops routes, preferred paths taken repeatedly, growing more efficient with each journey. Research on captive octopuses revealed they can solve mazes not just once but consistently, taking the same optimal path on subsequent trials. In the wild, this translates to hunting circuits. An octopus leaves its den following a specific sequence of landmarks, checking productive hunting spots in order, then returning home via a different route. This is spatial memory, but it may be more. Some researchers argue octopuses maintain cognitive maps, internal representations of space that allow navigation even when landmarks are obscured or altered. Evidence comes from displacement experiments. An octopus is captured, moved to an unfamiliar location within its home range, and released. It doesn't wander randomly. It orients quickly and heads toward its den, often taking a direct route rather than retracing familiar paths. This suggests the octopus knows not just turn left at this rock, but understands the spatial relationships between locations, a map-like representation that allows route planning. The den itself becomes the center of this map. A good den is real estate worth defending. Giant Pacific octopuses are generally solitary and non-aggressive toward each other, but they will defend dens. The confrontation is usually brief. Threat displays, perhaps a brief grappling, then one individual retreats. The established resident almost always wins. This suggests the defender's motivation exceeds the intruder's. The den has known value to the resident, tested exits, familiar approaches, a midden placed just so. The intruder seeks only a den, not this specific den. Middens, the piles of shells and debris outside octopus dens, serve multiple functions. They're waste disposal, certainly, but they also mark territory. A large midden signals an established resident to other octopuses. It's a sign that says occupied in a language written in crab shells. Some octopuses curate their middens deliberately, moving shells to specific locations, organizing debris into patterns. Whether this is purely functional, maintaining clear sight lines perhaps, or includes an aesthetic component remains unknown. What's clear is that octopuses pay attention to middens. They investigate them when exploring new territory. They avoid dens with large middens. They maintain their own middens with what appears to be care. Hours have passed for our octopus off Whidbey Island. Afternoon light filters down through the water, softer now, golden. She's completed 2 hunting circuits, following routes she's traveled dozens of times. The first circuit, north along the rocky slope, yielded nothing. The second, east into the kelp, brought a small, red rock crab. Now, she's doing something unexpected. She's moving stones. Not for den defense, not for shelter. She's rearranging the midden. A large clamshell, previously at the pile's edge, gets relocated to the center. 2 rocks get stacked. A piece of driftwood gets pushed aside. Why? The functionality isn't clear. The new arrangement doesn't obviously improve sightlines or defense. Perhaps it's maintenance behavior, keeping the midden from sprawling too far. Perhaps it's stimulation, the octopus equivalent of rearranging furniture. Or perhaps it serves purposes we haven't yet recognized. She works methodically, one arm gripping stones, while others anchor her against the current. The task takes 20 minutes. When finished, she settles back into her den, mantle pulsing rhythmically, arms arranged in a loose coil. Rest, but not sleep, not yet. Her eyes remain open, tracking movement in the water column above. This kind of routine maintenance, den organization, midden curation, route patrol, fills much of an octopus's day. Hunting provides drama, but most hours involve less exciting necessities. The work of survival is mostly routine, yet even routine requires navigation, and navigation requires memory. Studies tracking octopus movements with acoustic tags revealed they don't travel randomly, even in unfamiliar territory. They move along edges, the boundary between rock and sand, the base of a reef wall, the margin of a kelp bed. These edges provide orientation, a structural guide through space. When forced to cross open territory, sand flats, bare rock, octopuses minimize exposure. They move quickly, directly, suggesting they know their destination and have calculated the shortest path. Once back in complex terrain, they slow, resuming the exploratory wandering that characterizes foraging. This strategic use of space, fast in danger, slow in safety, requires constant assessment of risk. The octopus must evaluate terrain type, visibility, predator presence, and adjust behavior accordingly. Time of day factors into these calculations. Giant Pacific octopuses show crepuscular activity patterns, most active at dawn and dusk when light levels benefit their vision, but many predators are less active. During bright midday, they tend to stay closer to dens. During full darkness, activity drops further. This creates a rhythm to octopus life: morning exploration, midday rest, evening hunt, nighttime vigilance. The pattern varies by individual and adjusts to local conditions, but the basic structure holds. The rhythm depends on the octopus maintaining temporal awareness, some internal sense of time's passage. Evidence suggests they possess circadian rhythms, behavioral and physiological patterns that cycle roughly every 24 hours. In constant darkness, captive octopuses still show activity peaks at times corresponding to dawn and dusk in their native habitat. The clock runs internally, set by evolution to match the light cycles of their environment. But beyond circadian patterns, octopuses may track time at shorter scales. In experiments requiring them to wait for a reward, octopuses demonstrate interval timing. They can estimate durations and adjust behavior based on how much time has passed. This matters for hunting. A crab hiding in a crevice might emerge if an octopus waits, but waiting costs time that could be spent searching elsewhere. The octopus must decide, wait or move on. That decision benefits from knowing how long it's already waited. Similarly, a den entrance too small to fit through might widen at low tide when water pressure decreases. An octopus that remembers tide patterns can time its movements to exploit these temporary opportunities. Navigation through space and time. These are the foundations of territorial behavior. The octopus doesn't just live in its territory. It knows its territory, updates that knowledge with experience, and uses it to make predictions about where and when to find food, safety, and opportunity. This transforms random ocean into known geography. It makes the octopus not a drifter, but a resident, an animal with a place it understands and routines it follows. And like all residents, the octopus must eventually decide, stay or search for better prospects. The den is good, but is it good enough? Most octopuses stay. The costs of relocation, finding a new den, learning new routes, establishing new hunting grounds, exceed the benefits unless current conditions badly deteriorate. So they commit to place, invest in knowledge of that place, and become experts in a small patch of ocean. This is the spatial intelligence of the octopus, not just navigation, but the construction of meaning in geography. Every rock becomes a landmark. Every crevice becomes a known quantity. The territory becomes an extension of memory, and memory becomes a map. An octopus hunts with 8 limbs, each capable of independent action. The coordination required is staggering, not just controlling 8 arms, but deploying them strategically based on prey type, terrain, and circumstance. The basic approach varies by species and prey, but patterns emerge. For crabs and lobsters, armored prey that can fight back, the octopus uses the pounce. It positions itself above or beside the prey, then drops its webbing like a parachute, arms spreading to form an umbrella. The web traps the prey beneath. Arms curl inward, converging from all sides. The prey has nowhere to retreat. This webbing pounce is visually striking. The octopus transforms from a streamlined hunter to a bell-shaped net in an instant. The arms don't just drop, they coordinate their descent, timing their arrival to close all escape routes simultaneously. For fish, fast, evasive prey, the octopus must be quicker. It jets toward the fish, arms outstretched, then grabs. The first arm to make contact triggers a cascade response. Other arms converge instantly. The fish often doesn't realize it's caught until 3 or 4 arms have wrapped around it. Speed matters here. A fish can escape 1 arm, maybe 2, but the octopus deploys arms faster than the fish can process threats. For shelled prey, clams, mussels, snails, the octopus employs patience and chemistry. It wraps arms around the shell, sucks it tight to the body, and begins drilling. The radula, a ribbon of teeth inside the mouth, scrapes at the shell's surface. The salivary glands secrete enzymes that soften calcium carbonate. Together, radula and enzymes bore through shell. The process takes time, sometimes hours for thick shells, but the octopus waits. Once through, it injects more enzymes to paralyze the prey and begin digestion even before extraction. The beak comes into play with all prey eventually. Located at the center point where all 8 arms meet, the beak is the octopus's only hard structure, a parrot-like structure made of chitin, the same material as insect exoskeletons. The beak's 2 parts, upper and lower mandibles, shear past each other like scissors. They can crack crab shells, sever fish spines, grip slippery prey. The beak is surrounded by a muscular buccal mass that manipulates food, positioning it for optimal cutting. But the beak serves another crucial function. It's the limiting factor for what spaces an octopus can squeeze through. An octopus has no bones. Its entire body is compressible except for the beak. If the beak fits through an opening, the entire animal can follow. This makes the beak both tool and constraint, the sharp edge that processes food and the hard limit that defines possibility. The radula works in concert with the beak. While the beak cuts, the radula scrapes and rasps, breaking food into smaller pieces. It's covered in chitinous teeth arranged in rows. Think of a conveyor belt of tiny blades, constantly moving, constantly abrading. Different octopus species have radulae adapted to their primary prey. Species that eat hard-shelled prey have robust, heavily mineralized radula teeth. Species that eat soft-bodied prey have finer, more delicate teeth suited to precision work. The radula wears down with use. New rows of teeth continually form at the back and move forward as old teeth at the front wear away and are discarded. It's a self-replacing tool, always sharp, always ready. Venom adds another dimension to the octopus arsenal. All octopuses produce venom, a cocktail of proteins, peptides, and small molecules delivered through the salivary glands. The venom's composition varies by species, tailored to primary prey. For most octopuses, venom serves to immobilize prey quickly. A crab injected with venom stops struggling within seconds. A fish goes limp almost immediately. This makes handling easier and reduces the chance of injury from defensive spines or claws. The venom works by disrupting nerve and muscle function. Some components block sodium channels, preventing nerve signals. Others interfere with neurotransmitters at muscle junctions. The result is paralysis, temporary in some cases, permanent in others. For humans, most octopus venom causes only minor irritation, a bit like a bee sting. The blue-ringed octopus is the famous exception, which we'll discuss later. But even harmless octopus venom can cause localized pain, swelling, and in rare cases, more serious reactions. The octopus doesn't bite readily. It's a tool of last resort, used primarily on prey and occasionally in defense when other strategies, camouflage, escape, ink, have failed. Hunting success rates vary enormously. Studies tracking wild octopuses found success rates ranging from 20 to 60%, depending on species, prey type, and individual skill. Younger, less experienced octopuses fail more often. Older individuals develop techniques that improve their odds. This suggests hunting is a learned skill, refined through practice. An octopus gets better at predicting prey behavior, positioning attacks, timing strikes. Experience creates expertise. Some behaviors border on tactical sophistication. Octopuses have been observed herding fish into corners, cutting off escape routes before attacking. Others wait near cleaner stations, locations where fish gather to have parasites removed, ambushing fish distracted by grooming. These are opportunity-based strategies. The octopus recognizes predictable prey behavior and exploits it. Octopuses also scavenge, though less frequently than they hunt. A dead fish, a discarded carcass, bait in a crab trap, all represent easy calories. The octopus uses chemoreception to locate carrion, following scent trails to their source. Scavenging creates occasional interactions with humans. Octopuses entering crab traps to steal bait is a well-documented phenomenon, frustrating to fishermen, fascinating to researchers. The octopus enters, eats the bait, sometimes eats the trapped crabs, then either squeezes back out or settles in to rest. Some clever individuals learn to avoid traps after being caught once. Others seem to view traps as convenient feeding stations, entering repeatedly despite being removed by fishermen. The transition from hunting to eating is swift. Once prey is secured and subdued, the octopus typically retreats to its den or a safe location. It doesn't eat in the open if it can avoid it. Feeding creates vulnerability, attention focused on food rather than threats, arms occupied, movement restricted. In the den, the octopus can take its time. It positions the prey, applies the beak, uses the radula. Pieces are drawn into the mouth and swallowed. Shells are discarded. The process is methodical, efficient. For large prey, feeding can take an hour or more. The octopus doesn't rush. It extracts maximum nutrition from every capture, knowing the next successful hunt isn't guaranteed. What emerges from studying octopus hunting is a picture of versatility. They don't have one strategy, they have dozens, deployed based on context. This requires not just physical tools, but the cognitive ability to select appropriate tools for each situation. The octopus must recognize prey type, assess terrain, evaluate risk, choose approach, coordinate 8 arms in complex patterns, and adjust the plan if circumstances change. All of this happens in real time, often in seconds. This is embodied cognition, intelligence expressed through action. The octopus thinks by doing, and in doing, reveals the depth of its capabilities. An octopus without armor needs exits. Evolution provided several. The most fundamental is compression. With no skeleton, nothing rigid except the beak, an octopus can squeeze through any opening larger than that beak. For a giant Pacific octopus weighing 30 kilograms, that means gaps as small as a few centimeters. The body doesn't just compress, it reorganizes. The mantle flattens, arms elongate and thin, internal organs shift position, moving around each other like water finding paths through stone. What appears solid becomes fluid. High-speed footage of octopuses squeezing through narrow gaps reveals the mechanics. The leading arm goes first, probing, testing, then the beak, oriented to fit through the narrowest dimension. Once the beak is through, the rest follows, mantle collapsing, organs flowing, arms threading through one by one or in pairs. The entire process might take 10 seconds for a gap that looks impossibly small. The octopus emerges on the other side fully intact, ready to reinflate and resume normal shape. This ability creates challenges for those trying to keep octopuses contained. Aquarium curators tell stories of octopuses escaping tanks through filtration pipes, gaps in lids, spaces between glass and frame. If water can flow through, an octopus can likely follow. One famous case involved an octopus in a New Zealand aquarium that repeatedly left its tank at night, crossed the floor to another tank containing fish, fed, then returned to its own tank before morning. Staff found wet trails on the floor, but couldn't determine the culprit until they set up cameras. The octopus was compressing itself through a gap barely visible to human observers, a space where the tank lid didn't quite meet the frame. It had discovered, through exploration or accident, that this gap led to freedom and food. These escape accounts are numerous enough to form a genre of octopus research literature, less about physiology, more about problem solving and persistence. But compression alone doesn't guarantee escape. Sometimes an octopus needs speed. That's where jet propulsion enters. The mantle, the muscular sac that houses most internal organs, can contract powerfully, forcing water out through the siphon in a concentrated jet. The octopus aims the siphon, controls the force of contraction, and rockets in the opposite direction. This is the octopus's fastest mode of travel, but also its most expensive energetically. Remember, the systemic heart stops during active swimming. The octopus is literally holding its breath while jetting, running on reserves. So jetting is reserved for emergencies, escaping predators, crossing dangerous open water, fleeing threats too immediate for camouflage. The siphon itself is remarkably flexible. The octopus can aim it in nearly any direction, allowing movement forward, backward, or laterally. Multiple jets in quick succession let it zigzag, changing direction unpredictably. This maneuverability makes octopuses difficult targets even when visible. A seal pursuing an octopus might close in, lunge, and find itself biting water as the octopus jets sideways at the last moment. When jetting, the octopus often trails its arms behind, streamlining its body to reduce drag. But it can also spread arms during flight, using them as rudders for fine control or as brakes to stop suddenly. Then there's ink, perhaps the most famous octopus defense. The ink sac, located near the digestive system, produces a dark fluid rich in melanin, the same pigment that colors human skin and hair. When threatened, the octopus contracts muscles around the ink sac, forcing ink out through the siphon along with the water jet. The ink doesn't just create a visual cloud, though it does that effectively. It also contains chemical compounds that irritate predators' eyes and gills, and, most interestingly, seem to dull chemoreception temporarily. A predator swimming through ink loses the ability to smell for several seconds. Since many marine predators hunt partly by scent, this creates disorientation beyond just visual obstruction. Some octopuses shape their ink into pseudomorphs, blobs roughly the size and shape of an octopus. The predator attacks the blob, while the real octopus jets away in another direction. It's a decoy made of melanin, a false target that buys seconds. Those seconds often mean survival, but ink has costs. An octopus has limited ink reserves. Once depleted, the ink sac takes hours to refill. An octopus that empties its ink sac becomes more vulnerable if another threat appears soon after. Additionally, ink in confined spaces, like tide pools or small caves, can backfire. The octopus breathes the same water it just filled with ink, potentially irritating its own gills. So, octopuses reserve inking for open water when possible. Beyond these physical escapes, octopuses employ strategic hiding. When pursued, they don't just flee, they vanish mid-flight. An octopus jetting across a reef will spot a crevice, dart inside, and instantly change color to match the interior. A predator, following the movement, arrives at the crevice and sees only rock. The octopus has become part of the architecture, indistinguishable from stone. This combination, speed into camouflage, is devastatingly effective. It breaks the predator's tracking. They lose not just the visual target, but the conceptual target. The octopus stops being fleeing prey and becomes background. Some escape behaviors seem calculated to exploit predator psychology. An octopus pursued by a fish might jet upward into kelp, then go completely still while maintaining mottled brown coloring. To the predator below, looking up through waving kelp fronds, the octopus blends into the canopy. The predator circles, searches, eventually gives up. The octopus waits until the threat passes, then descends and continues its day. This patience during escape, the ability to freeze after flight, requires impulse control. The instinct must be to keep fleeing, to put maximum distance between self and danger. But the octopus stops, trusts its camouflage, and waits. Octopuses also use autotomy as a last resort, the ability to sever an arm voluntarily. If a predator grabs an arm, the octopus can detach it, leaving the arm behind while escaping with seven. The severed arm continues moving, thanks to its distributed nervous system, creating a distraction. The predator focuses on the writhing arm, while the octopus jets away. The octopus will regenerate the lost arm over several months. The new arm grows from the stump, complete with suckers and full functionality. It's a costly defense. Losing an arm reduces hunting efficiency, climbing ability, and sensory input, but it's better than death. Evening arrives in Puget Sound, and our octopus has encountered something unexpected. A harbor seal, young and curious, has been investigating her territory. She noticed it an hour ago, distant but approaching. Now it's closer, swimming along the rocky slope, nosing into crevices. She's faced seals before. They're dangerous, fast swimmers, intelligent hunters, persistent when they've identified prey. Her den offers safety, but she's 15 meters from it, exposed. The seal hasn't spotted her yet. She's adopted full camouflage, mottled brown and grey, papillae raised to match the rocky texture. She's become a boulder with eyes. The seal passes within 3 meters. She doesn't move, doesn't jet, doesn't ink. Movement would reveal her. She trusts the camouflage, trusts the stillness. The seal continues on, investigating another crevice. It finds something, a fish perhaps, and focuses there. The attention shifts. She moves, not jetting. That would create vibration the seal might detect. Instead, she crawls, low and slow, using the rock's contours for cover. Each arm placement is deliberate. She flows more than walks. 5 meters, 10 meters. The seal is still occupied. 12 meters, almost there. She reaches the den entrance and pours herself inside, arms following in sequence. Safe. The seal never knew she was there. Inside the den, she settles. The mantle pulses faster. Exertion. Perhaps adrenaline's equivalent. But she's unharmed. The seal is a threat acknowledged and avoided. This is escape at its finest. Not the dramatic jet and ink cloud, but the invisible exit. The threat that never fully materializes because the prey was never quite there. She'll wait now, let the seal move on. Later, when darkness is complete, she'll emerge to hunt again. An octopus builds its model of the world through senses fundamentally different from ours. To understand octopus intelligence, we must first understand octopus perception, how information enters, how it's processed, what the world looks like from inside that distributed mind. Vision anchors, octopus awareness. The eyes are large, prominent, camera-type eyes, remarkably similar in structure to vertebrate eyes. A case of convergent evolution where different lineages arrived at similar solutions. But similarity in structure doesn't mean similarity in function. Octopus eyes have a W-shaped pupil that can contract to a thin slit or expand to nearly circular. This gives excellent depth of field, keeping both near and far objects in focus simultaneously. Useful for an animal that must track nearby prey while watching for distant predators. The retina is constructed differently from ours. In vertebrates, photoreceptors are located behind a layer of neurons, meaning light must pass through neural tissue before reaching the light-sensitive cells. In octopuses, photoreceptors are at the front, with neurons behind. This creates a cleaner signal with no blind spot. Each eye can move independently. An octopus can look in 2 directions at once, one eye scanning the reef ahead, the other monitoring the water column above for descending predators. But here's the puzzle. Octopuses have only one type of photoreceptor. They're functionally colorblind, seeing the world in grayscale, yet they match colors precisely when camouflaging. How? Several hypotheses compete. One suggests chromatic aberration. Different wavelengths focus at different distances, creating color-specific blur patterns the octopus learns to interpret. Another proposes that the skin's light-sensitive proteins detect color independent of the eyes. A third, more recent idea points to the pupil shape. The W-shaped pupil creates more chromatic aberration than round pupils, potentially exaggerating the blur differences and making color discrimination possible, even with single receptor vision. Whatever the mechanism, octopuses clearly perceive color information, even if we don't fully understand how they extract it. They also see polarized light waves vibrating in specific planes rather than random directions. Many marine animals produce polarized light reflections. To an octopus, these might appear as signals invisible to non-polarization-sensitive viewers. This could help detect transparent prey like jellyfish, which polarize light distinctly. It might aid in communication. Octopus skin can produce polarized patterns. It could assist in navigation, as polarized light patterns in the ocean create a kind of compass. Visual acuity varies by species. Giant Pacific octopuses have good acuity for their size, but not exceptional. They rely more on detecting movement and contrast than on resolving fine details. This makes sense for a nocturnal hunter. In low light, movement matters more than detail. A fish-shaped shadow crossing the visual field triggers attention. The exact pattern of scales doesn't. Octopuses are particularly sensitive to contrast changes, the boundary between light and dark. This helps them detect camouflaged prey and informs their own camouflage strategies. They see in edges and gradients. Beyond vision, chemoreception dominates octopus perception. Taste and smell blend into one sense, detected through receptors distributed across the arms and especially dense on the suckers. Each sucker contains thousands of chemoreceptors. When an arm explores a crevice, it's not just feeling, it's tasting everything it touches. Water carries dissolved chemicals, and the suckers sample constantly. This lets an octopus identify prey by chemical signature without seeing it. A crab hidden deep in a crack is still detectable by molecules its body releases. The octopus follows the gradient. Higher concentration this direction, lower that direction, until it locates the source. The suckers also provide tactile information. Each sucker can detect texture, temperature, and pressure. They work independently. One sucker might register smooth glass while the neighboring sucker feels rough stone. This distributed tactile sense means an octopus doesn't need to think about where each sucker is or what it's doing. The information flows to arm ganglia, which process it locally and send summaries to the central brain. The brain receives something like, Arm 3 has found a textured surface. Chemical signature suggests crab, grip is secure. It doesn't micromanage which suckers to engage or how much pressure to apply. The arm handles that. Amite. Proprioception, the sense of body position, works differently for octopuses than for animals with rigid skeletons. Without joints at fixed points, an octopus must track arm configuration through muscle tension and skin stretch. Research suggests they use a simplified strategy. Rather than maintaining a complete model of where each point along each arm is in space, they track key segments and interpolate between them. This reduces computational load while maintaining functional awareness. It's enough to know arm is bent here, extended there, without tracking every millimeter. Hearing in octopuses is limited. They lack the sophisticated hearing organs of fish or the ear structures of mammals. They likely detect low-frequency vibrations through mechanoreceptors in the skin and statocysts, balance organs that also sense substrate vibrations. This means they perceive sound more as vibration than as the rich auditory landscape mammals experience. The snap of a shrimp claw, the movement of a fishtail, the approach of a boat, all register as pressure waves and vibrations rather than distinct sounds. Some researchers argue octopuses are effectively deaf in the conventional sense, while others suggest they have narrow frequency sensitivity we haven't fully characterized. The debate continues. Pain perception is complex and controversial. Octopuses clearly respond to harmful stimuli. They withdraw from sharp objects, avoid extreme temperatures, show stress responses to injury. Whether this constitutes pain as mammals experience it remains unknown. They have nociceptors, sensory neurons that detect potential tissue damage. But nociception isn't the same as pain, which includes an emotional component. We can measure octopus nociception. We can't yet measure octopus suffering. This matters for ethics, especially in research settings. Many institutions now require anesthesia for octopus procedures and have protocols for humane euthanasia. The assumption, based on their behavioral complexity, is that we should err on the side of caution. All these senses, vision, chemoreception, touch, vibration, possibly others we haven't identified, feed into the distributed processing system. Each arm receives local sensory input, processes it locally, and acts on it while also sending relevant information to the central brain. The brain integrates these reports into a coherent picture of the environment, but it's not building that picture from scratch. The arms have already done preliminary processing. This is parallel sensory processing. 8 independent sensory streams running simultaneously, each handled by its own processor, with a central executive pulling them together only when integration is necessary. The result is an animal exquisitely sensitive to its environment. It can detect a crab by taste without seeing it. It can spot a predator by movement while examining a shell with another arm. It can navigate by landmarks while hunting by scent. Each sense contributes to survival, and the system as a whole creates awareness far greater than any single sense would allow. But senses only provide information. What the octopus does with that information, how it interprets, responds, learns, that's where perception becomes cognition. The octopus perceives a world rich in chemical gradients, subtle movements, textural variations. It's a world we can barely imagine, one where taste comes through fingertips, where skin sees light, where 8 centers of awareness contribute to one experience. This sensory architecture shaped octopus intelligence. You can't separate how they think from how they perceive. The distributed processing of sensory information led to distributed cognition. The parallel input streams enabled parallel decision-making. The octopus perceives its world in a way unique among intelligent animals, and that unique perception created unique intelligence. Over 300 octopus species inhabit Earth's oceans, from polar seas to tropical reefs, from tide pools to abyssal plains. Each species represents a variation on the octopus design, adaptations to specific niches, specific challenges, specific opportunities. We'll focus on 4 species that reveal the range of octopus diversity and intelligence. The giant Pacific octopus, Enteroctopus duflini, holds the title of largest octopus species. Adults commonly reach arm spans of 4 to 5 meters and weights of 15 to 30 kilograms. The largest confirmed specimen weighed 71 kilograms, with an arm span exceeding 7 meters. Size brings advantages. Larger octopuses have fewer predators. A 30-kilogram octopus intimidates most potential threats. They can tackle larger prey, access deeper crevices, store more energy reserves, but size also demands more food. A giant Pacific octopus must hunt successfully and frequently to maintain its mass, especially in the cold North Pacific waters where metabolism, while slower than in warm water, still requires constant fuel. These octopuses live 3 to 5 years, relatively long for octopuses, though still brief by vertebrate standards. They spend their youth in shallow waters, moving deeper as they mature. Some individuals have been found at depths exceeding 600 meters, though most remain in coastal waters above 100 meters. Their intelligence is well documented, partly because their size and cold water habitat make them suitable for captivity and study. They're the species in most aquarium displays, most research studies, most escape artist stories. Individual giant Pacific octopuses show distinct personalities. Some are bold, exploring new objects immediately. Others are cautious, observing for hours before investigating. Some tolerate human presence. Others retreat at the slightest disturbance. The common octopus, Octopus vulgaris, might be small, rarely exceeding 3 kilograms, but it's been called the most intelligent invertebrate on Earth. Its problem-solving abilities, memory, and learning speed have made it the primary subject of cognitive research. Found throughout the Mediterranean and parts of the Atlantic, the common octopus thrives in complex reef environments where intelligence pays dividends. They master mazes faster than other species. They show more sophisticated tool use. They seem to plan ahead more consistently. Why this species specifically? Perhaps because Mediterranean reefs are particularly complex, more hiding spots, more prey types, more predators. The environmental pressure for intelligence ran particularly strong here. Common octopuses show remarkable learning flexibility. In experiments where researchers change rules, reversing which path leads to food, for instance, common octopuses adapt within 1 or 2 trials. They don't just memorize, They grasp principles. They also show the clearest evidence of observational learning among octopuses. While they can't learn by watching other octopuses, a limitation shared by all species, they can learn by watching humans. If a human demonstrates opening a container, a watching common octopus performs better on its first attempt than an octopus without that demonstration. This suggests they can extract relevant information from observed actions, even when those actions are performed by a very different body type. The mimic octopus, Thormoctopus mimicus, takes camouflage to theatrical extremes. Discovered only in 1998 off the coast of Sulawesi, Indonesia, it's the first octopus species confirmed to impersonate other animals. Its repertoire includes at least 15 different species: flatfish, lionfish, sea snakes, jellyfish, stingrays, sand dollars, hermit crabs, mantis, shrimp. The transformations are swift and convincing. Posture, colour, movement pattern all align with the imitated species. The mimic octopus doesn't impersonate randomly. It chooses disguises based on the threat it faces. Against predators that avoid sea snakes, it becomes a sea snake. Against those that avoid lionfish, it becomes a lionfish. This requires a cognitive model of predator behaviour, knowing not just what different predators look like, but what they avoid. The octopus must recognise the predator, recall what that predator fears, and execute the appropriate performance. It's strategy-level thinking: assess the threat, select the counter, deploy the deception. Mimic octopuses are small, rarely exceeding 60 centimeters in total length. They live in relatively exposed habitats, sand and mud flats with sparse cover. Without strong defensive capabilities, they invested in deception. Whether individuals learn their repertoire through trial and error or possess instinctive templates remains uncertain. Likely it's a combination. Innate capacity to mimic combined with learned refinement of which disguises work in which contexts. The blue-ringed octopus, genus Hapalochlaena, 4 species, is small, beautiful, and potent. Adults fit in a human palm. Their base colouring is yellowish-brown, unremarkable. But when disturbed, iridescent blue rings pulse across their skin, 50 or 60 rings, appearing in sequence, fading, reappearing. The display is a warning. These octopuses produce tetrodotoxin, the same neurotoxin found in pufferfish. A single blue-ringed octopus carries enough venom to paralyze 10 adult humans. There is no anti-venom. The venom evolved for prey, small crabs, shrimp, fish. It works by blocking sodium channels in nerves and muscles, causing paralysis. In humans, paralysis includes respiratory muscles. Victims remain conscious but unable to breathe. Deaths are rare, fewer than a dozen confirmed fatalities ever recorded. The octopus is not aggressive, it bites only when handled carelessly or cornered. The blue ring display provides clear warning. Respect the warning, and there's no danger. Blue-ringed octopuses inhabit tide pools and shallow reefs throughout the Indo-Pacific. They're common in some areas, often encountered by reef walkers who don't recognize them. Their intelligence appears comparable to other small octopuses. They solve simple problems, remember den locations, learn from experience. But they've received less study, partly because their venom makes handling dangerous, partly because they're small and short-lived. What's striking about blue-ringed octopuses is their reliance on warning rather than camouflage. Most octopuses hide. Blue-ringed octopuses advertise. The blue rings are visible from meters away, a clear statement of danger. This is honest signaling. The octopus has the venom to back up its warning. Predators that learn the association, blue rings mean danger, avoid the octopus. Those that don't learn often don't survive to reproduce. Over generations, this creates selection pressure for predators to avoid blue-ringed patterns innately. The octopus's warning becomes increasingly effective as predators evolve recognition. These 4 species, giant Pacific, common, mimic, blue-ringed, represent different solutions to the challenge of survival: size and strength, intelligence and flexibility, deception and performance, venom and warning, but all share the fundamental octopus architecture: 8 arms with distributed intelligence, sophisticated camouflage systems, problem-solving abilities, short lifespans demanding fast learning. Hundreds of other species fill niches these 4 don't occupy. Deep-sea octopuses adapted to crushing pressure and permanent darkness. Pelagic octopuses that never touch substrate, drifting in open ocean. Tiny octopuses living in shells, barely larger than a fingernail. Each species is an experiment in what octopus design can achieve. Each evolved independently, yet all remain recognizably octopus. 8 arms, soft bodies, intelligent solutions to ancient problems. The diversity reveals not just evolutionary creativity, but the flexibility of the octopus body plan. The same basic architecture can be scaled up or down, specialized for different prey, different habitats, different survival strategies. What unites them all is intelligence as adaptation. Not intelligence for its own sake, but intelligence as the solution to the problem of being soft-bodied in a dangerous ocean. The octopus life cycle is brief, intense, and ends with an act of devotion that costs everything. Most octopus species are semilparous. They reproduce once, then die. This strategy, common in the ocean but rare among intelligent animals, shapes every aspect of octopus behavior and biology. Sexual maturity arrives at different ages depending on species. Small octopuses like the blue-ringed may mature in 6 months. Giant Pacific octopuses take 2 to 3 years. But once mature, the biological clock begins its final countdown. But mating itself is cautious. Male and female octopuses are both solitary and potentially aggressive. The male must signal his intentions clearly or risk being treated as prey. He approaches with a specialized arm, the hectocotylus. In some species, this arm is visibly modified with a groove or spoon-shaped tip. In others, the modification is internal. The hectocotylus transfers spermatophores, packets of sperm, to the female's mantle cavity. The transfer can take hours. Both octopuses remain alert, ready to flee if danger approaches. In some species, the male stays distant, extending only the hectocotylus while keeping his body safely away. In others, the pair intertwine arms in what appears almost gentle. Color changes accompany mating. Patterns shift across the skin, signals of intent, of acceptance, of identity. The specific patterns vary by species, but the principle holds. Mating is negotiated through skin as much as through behavior. Once mating concludes, the pair separates. The male, his biological purpose fulfilled, begins a slow decline. He stops eating, loses coordination, eventually dies within weeks or months. His life's work is complete. The female faces a different fate, but equally final. She carries the fertilized eggs internally for weeks or months, depending on species and water temperature. When ready to lay, she seeks a suitable den, protected, with good water flow, defensible. Then she lays thousands of eggs. A giant Pacific octopus may lay 70,000. A common octopus produces 100,000 to 500,000. Each egg is tiny, barely visible, but together they form strings like rice grains on a thread. She attaches these strings to the roof of her den, arranging them carefully. Then her vigil begins. For months, sometimes more than half a year in cold water species, she tends the eggs. She cleans them constantly with her arms and water jets from her siphon, preventing fungal growth. She aerates them, ensuring each egg receives oxygen. She guards them against predators. And she stops eating. The female octopus doesn't hunt during this period. She doesn't leave the den except to defend the eggs. She draws on her body's reserves, metabolizing her own tissues to stay alive. Her body begins to deteriorate. Muscles waste. Skin loses its color-changing ability. Eyes cloud. But she continues tending the eggs. This maternal care is extraordinary among invertebrates. Most marine animals scatter eggs and provide no care. The octopus invests everything, her final months, her body's reserves, her life, into ensuring those eggs survive to hatching. Why such devotion? The eggs are vulnerable. Without cleaning, fungus would claim them within days. Without aeration, many would suffocate. Without defense, predators would consume them. The mother's presence is the difference between the next generation existing or not existing. Evolution strongly selected for females willing to make this sacrifice. Or, near the end of incubation, the eggs begin to move. Tiny octopuses develop inside, their mantles pulsing. The female intensifies her care, cleaning more frequently, increasing water flow. Then they hatch. Thousands of miniature octopuses, each smaller than a grain of rice, emerge. In most species, they immediately swim upward, joining the plankton. Paralarvae, tiny and transparent, drifting with currents. The mother watches them disperse. Her work is done. Within days of hatching, she dies. Her body, depleted beyond recovery, shuts down. She drifts in the den or is carried out by currents. Her sacrifice is complete. This strategy, semelparity, seems wasteful. Why die after one reproductive event? Why not survive, recover, and reproduce again? The answer lies in octopus physiology. They grow continuously throughout life. Reproducing early means smaller size and fewer eggs. But surviving to reproduce again would require massive energy investment in recovery. Energy better spent on producing more eggs the first time. Natural selection optimized for maximum offspring, even at the cost of future reproduction. One massive reproductive event produces more surviving young than multiple smaller events would. The paralarvae face brutal odds. Fewer than 1 in 1,000 survives to settlement, the moment when they leave the plankton and adopt a bottom-dwelling lifestyle. Those months in the plankton are a gauntlet. Fish, jellyfish, other invertebrates, all prey on paralarvae. Currents sweep them to unsuitable habitats. Starvation claims those unable to catch enough microscopic prey. But the survivors gain something valuable: dispersal. Ocean currents carry paralarvae hundreds of kilometers from their birthplace. This spreads the species, colonizes new habitats, prevents inbreeding. When a paralarva finally settles, triggered by chemical cues from suitable substrate, it's often in a location it could never have reached by crawling. The juvenile octopus that emerges from settlement bears little resemblance to the adult. It's tiny, vulnerable, with limited camouflage ability. It hides in crevices barely larger than its body, feeding on minute prey, amphipods, small crabs, anything it can overpower. Growth is rapid. In weeks, the octopus doubles in size. Its camouflage improves. Its hunting skills develop. It begins exploring farther from its initial hiding spot. This is when learning happens fastest. The juvenile must master hunting, predator avoidance, camouflage, navigation, all the skills its solitary life demands. No parent teaches these skills. No peers demonstrate them. Each juvenile learns through experience or dies trying. Mortality remains high. Most juveniles don't survive their first year, but those that do grow rapidly, their intelligence developing alongside their bodies. By the time they reach maturity, they're competent hunters, skilled escape artists, masters of their territories. They've survived long enough to reproduce, to add their genetic contribution to the next generation. And then, like their parents, they'll make the final sacrifice, the males after mating, the females after tending eggs. This cycle, brief life, intense learning, singular reproduction, devoted care, inevitable death, has repeated for hundreds of millions of years. It's a strategy that works, proven by octopus diversity and abundance. But it means each generation starts fresh. Knowledge dies with each individual. There's no cultural transmission, no accumulated wisdom. Each octopus must learn the world anew. Perhaps this is why octopus intelligence remains individual rather than collective, sophisticated but not cumulative. They're brilliant problem solvers, trapped in brief lives, never building on what came before. The question lingers: what might octopuses achieve if they lived longer? If mothers could teach young? If knowledge could accumulate across generations? We'll never know. Evolution chose a different path: brief, bright intelligence that burns intensely and ends. An octopus doesn't live in isolation. Its reef is shared space, home to predators, competitors, and occasionally unlikely allies. The relationship between octopuses and moray eels is among the most complex. In some regions, they're enemies. In others, they're hunting partners. The difference lies in local ecology and individual experience. Morays hunt by scent and persistence. They thread through crevices too narrow for most predators, probing gaps with their snouts, flushing out hidden prey. This makes them dangerous to octopuses, which rely on crevice hiding. But morays are also slow in open water. They lack the burst speed to catch fleeing fish. This creates opportunity. In the Red Sea and Indo-Pacific reefs, researchers have documented cooperative hunting between octopuses and morays. The octopus signals the eel, tapping it with an arm or adopting a specific posture. The eel responds, following the octopus to a crevice where prey hides. The octopus is too large to enter. The eel slides inside, flushing the prey out. Sometimes the octopus catches it. Sometimes the eel does. Either way, the cooperation increases hunting success for both. This is remarkable for several reasons. First, it's cross-species cooperation. Two animals with different hunting styles coordinating actions. Second, it requires communication. The octopus must convey, "Follow me," and the eel must understand. Third, it demands trust. Both animals must tolerate proximity despite being potential threats to each other. The behavior isn't universal. Not all octopuses cooperate with morays. Not all morays cooperate with octopuses. It appears to be learned, transmitted not genetically, but through individual experience and observation. An octopus that successfully hunts with a moray repeats the behavior. One that gets bitten by a moray avoids them thereafter. Groupers present a similar dynamic. These large fish hunt by ambush, positioning themselves near likely prey paths and striking when opportunity presents. Like morays, groupers can be octopus predators, but they can also be partners. Octopuses have been observed leading groupers to prey, using a similar signaling method: specific postures, color changes, directed movement. The grouper follows. The octopus flushes prey from hiding. The grouper strikes. Again, both benefit. The octopus gains access to prey it couldn't catch alone. The grouper gains the octopus's superior ability to locate and flush hidden prey. These cooperative relationships challenge assumptions about intelligence. Cooperation requires recognizing another animal's capabilities, predicting their behavior, and coordinating actions toward mutual benefit. It's cognitively demanding. That octopuses can cooperate with species as different as eels and groupers, species they sometimes flee from, suggests flexible, context-dependent decision-making. They're not following instinct. They're assessing individuals and situations. Sharks represent a different challenge. Most shark species prey on octopuses opportunistically. The octopus's soft body offers little challenge to shark teeth. But sharks hunt primarily by smell and electroreception, senses that work poorly against a camouflaged, stationary octopus. So the octopus's strategy against sharks is simple: freeze and hide. Most shark species cruise past without detecting a motionless octopus pressed against rock. The octopus waits until the shark passes, then continues its activities. Some shark species, particularly bottom-dwelling species like horn sharks and leopard sharks, root through crevices more persistently. Against these, the octopus relies on deep crevices the shark can't reach, or quick jets to safer locations. Ink works poorly against sharks. The chemical components that confuse fish don't affect shark olfaction significantly. The visual cloud may provide momentary concealment, but sharks hunting by scent aren't fooled for long. Seals and sea lions are perhaps the most dangerous predators octopuses face. They're intelligent, persistent, and capable in complex terrain. They hunt visually and by memory, checking known octopus dens repeatedly. Harbor seals in particular have become specialist octopus hunters in some regions. They learn which rocks typically shelter octopuses, which tide conditions make dens accessible, which times of day octopuses are most active. An octopus spotted by a seal has limited options. Fleeing works only if shelter is close. Camouflage fails against a predator that already knows you're there. Ink provides a few seconds at best. Some octopuses have learned to recognize individual seals, avoiding areas where particular seals hunt, timing their movements to when those seals are absent. This is predator-specific behavior, not general wariness. It suggests octopuses maintain a mental catalogue of threats. This seal hunts here at dawn, that one patrols the rocky point at dusk. This one doesn't hunt octopuses at all. Competition comes from unexpected sources. Other octopuses rarely compete directly. They're too solitary, territories too defined. But during mating season, males may compete for access to females. These confrontations are usually visual. The larger male spreads his arms, maximizes his apparent size, displays bold patterns. The smaller male typically retreats. Actual fighting is rare. Both octopuses can inflict damage, and both will avoid injury if possible. When fights do occur, they're grappling matches. Arms intertwine, suckers grip, each octopus trying to overpower the other or tear free. The stronger individual usually wins, but persistence sometimes lets smaller octopuses prevail. Interestingly, octopuses appear to remember these encounters. A male that loses a confrontation will avoid that rival for weeks afterward, even after the rival has moved to a different area. Crabs and lobsters compete for similar den spaces. An octopus seeking a new den might find it occupied by a large crab. Usually, the octopus evicts the crab, either by grabbing it and relocating it, or by simply moving in and waiting for the crab to leave. But large lobsters can defend dens successfully against octopuses. Their claws are dangerous, their armor tough. An octopus assessing a lobster-occupied den usually chooses to search elsewhere rather than fight. This is pragmatic decision-making. The den has value, but injury has cost. The octopus weighs the balance and acts accordingly. Fish often mob octopuses, gathering in groups and harassing them. This behavior seems partly defensive, alerting others to the predator's presence, and partly opportunistic. If the octopus flees, it might drop prey. The harassing fish can claim it. The octopus tolerates this to a point, then either retreats or displays threat patterns that disperse the mob. It's a negotiation. The fish probe for weakness. The octopus signals strength. Equilibrium is reached. Some fish species appear to recognize individual octopuses and adjust their behavior. Fish that have seen a particular octopus hunt successfully keep greater distance. Those that have seen an octopus fail or flee approach more boldly. Even birds factor into the octopus's world. Herons and cormorants hunt in shallow water, stabbing at movement. An octopus in a tide pool is vulnerable. It must remain motionless, perfectly camouflaged, until the bird moves on. Gulls and crows have learned to flip rocks during low tide, searching for stranded octopuses. The octopus's defense is to wedge itself deep in crevices where birds can't reach. This creates temporal patterns. Octopuses in intertidal zones time their activity to tide and bird schedules, active when water provides escape routes, hidden when exposure and bird presence coincide. What emerges from studying these relationships is a picture of the octopus as a node in a complex ecological network. It preys, is preyed upon, competes, occasionally cooperates. It navigates this network through learning, memory, and flexible behavior. The octopus isn't isolated intelligence, it's social intelligence applied to non-social life, using sophisticated cognition to manage relationships with neighbors who are alternatively threats, opportunities, or irrelevant. Each encounter teaches. Each interaction updates knowledge. The octopus builds a mental map not just of geography, but of the animals that inhabit that geography. This is the octopus's social world, solitary, yet densely connected to the lives around it. Humans have been fascinated by octopuses for thousands of years. The relationship is recorded in art, myth, cuisine, and more recently, ethical debate. Ancient Mediterranean cultures knew octopuses intimately. Greek fishermen harvested them, developed techniques to locate dens, understood their seasonal movements. The octopus appeared in their art, on pottery, in mosaics, painted on walls. Minoan frescoes from Knossos, created 3,500 years ago, depict octopuses with remarkable accuracy. The artists captured the flowing arms, the texture-changing skin, the alert eyes. These weren't stylized representations. They were portraits based on careful observation. The Greeks called it polypus, many-footed. They recognized its intelligence, noting in texts how it escaped traps, remembered locations, seemed to plan ahead. Aristotle wrote about octopus behavior, describing mating, hunting, and camouflage with surprising accuracy for his era. But alongside respect came fear. The octopus's alien form, boneless, flowing, many-armed, triggered unease. Myths grew around it. Stories of giant octopuses pulling swimmers down, tentacles strong enough to capsize boats. These stories contained kernels of truth wrapped in exaggeration. Large octopuses can be defensive if cornered. Their grip is powerful, but they don't hunt humans, don't attack unprovoked, don't drag swimmers to depths. Japanese culture developed a different relationship. The octopus, Tako, became a symbol of flexibility, adaptability, and intelligence. It appeared in art, often with playful or erotic connotations. The famous woodblock print, "The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife," is perhaps the most recognized example. Controversial, surreal, uniquely Japanese in its perspective. Japanese fishermen also developed sophisticated octopus fishing techniques. They used clay pots as artificial dens, placing them on the seafloor and returning days later to collect the octopuses that had moved in. This method is still practiced, exploiting the octopus's den-seeking behavior. Octopus became a staple of Japanese cuisine: takoyaki, sushi, sashimi. The preparation respects the animal's texture and flavor, often serving it simply to let its qualities speak. In Western culture, the octopus often appears as monster. Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea featured a giant squid, often confused with octopuses in popular imagination, attacking the Nautilus. Victor Hugo described a devilfish in horrific detail. These portrayals shaped perception. The octopus became synonymous with alien menace, tentacles wrapping around submarines in movie posters, representing unknowable danger from the deep. This imagery persists despite evidence. Every documentary showing octopus intelligence, every viral video of octopus problem solving, battles against centuries of cultural baggage that paints them as monsters. Modern research has complicated the relationship further. As we understand octopus cognition better, ethical questions arise. If octopuses can solve problems, remember experiences, perhaps suffer, what does that mean for how we treat them? Several countries now grant octopuses legal protections in research settings. The United Kingdom includes them in animal welfare legislation, requiring anesthesia for procedures, prohibiting painful experiments without clear justification. The European Union mandates ethical review for octopus research, placing them in the same category as vertebrates, despite being invertebrates. This is unprecedented, recognition that intelligence matters more than taxonomy for moral consideration. The fishing industry faces questions too. Millions of octopuses are harvested annually for food. Methods vary from selective pot fishing to indiscriminate trawling. Sustainability concerns are growing. Some octopus populations have collapsed from overfishing. Mediterranean common octopus stocks are a fraction of historical levels. Recovery is slow. Remember, octopuses live briefly and reproduce once. A population crash takes years to reverse. Aquaculture attempts offer potential alternatives, but octopus farming raises its own ethical concerns. Octopuses are solitary, intelligent, accustomed to complex environments. Captive conditions, even well-designed ones, may cause stress. There's also the cognitive dissonance of eating animals that solve puzzles, remember faces, show individual personalities. Many people who watch octopus documentaries subsequently refuse to eat them. Intelligence creates empathy, and empathy changes behavior. Yet octopus fishing supports communities, provides livelihoods, connects people to traditional practices. The ethics aren't simple. They never are when intelligence, culture, and survival intersect. Research continues to reveal capabilities that deepen ethical complexity. Octopuses show what might be considered playfulness. They seem to experience something like curiosity. They interact with enrichment objects in ways suggesting engagement beyond simple stimulus response. Do they suffer? The question haunts researchers. We can measure stress hormones, observe behavioral changes, track neural responses to harmful stimuli. But subjective experience, the felt quality of suffering, remains inaccessible. Most researchers err toward caution. Assume they can suffer, minimize potential harm, provide enrichment, space, appropriate environments, end lives humanely when necessary. This represents a shift in how we think about invertebrate minds. For decades, intelligence was considered a vertebrate trait. Invertebrates were reflexive, simple, unworthy of ethical consideration beyond basic conservation. The octopus challenged that framework. Here was an invertebrate that learned faster than many vertebrates, solved problems creatively, showed individual variation in behavior. It demanded we reconsider our categories. Public perception has shifted alongside scientific understanding. Octopuses are no longer just monsters or food, they're marvels. Aquariums report that octopus exhibits draw the largest crowds. YouTube videos of octopuses escaping tanks or solving puzzles reach millions of views. This creates conservation opportunities. People protect what they care about, and increasingly, people care about octopuses. Marine protected areas often benefit octopuses incidentally, and that benefit is now being celebrated rather than merely noted. But popularity has downsides. Demand for octopus interaction experiences has grown. Dive operations offering octopus encounters, touch tanks, photo opportunities. These can stress the animals, disrupt natural behaviors, transmit diseases. The relationship between humans and octopuses continues evolving. We're past the monster phase, moving through the marvel phase. approaching something more nuanced, respect for an intelligence fundamentally unlike our own. Scientists study them to understand alternative forms of cognition. Engineers examine them for robotics inspiration. Philosophers use them as thought experiments about the nature of mind. Artists depict them as symbols of complexity, adaptability, alien beauty. And somewhere in Puget Sound, an octopus who doesn't know she's studied, filmed, or admired goes about her day, hunting, hiding, maintaining her den. The human-octopus relationship is ultimately one-sided. We're fascinated by them. They're indifferent to us, except as occasional threats or sources of curiosity. Perhaps that's appropriate. They evolved their intelligence independently for their own purposes. They don't need our recognition, but we need their existence as reminders that intelligence takes many forms, that minds can be built in ways we never imagined, that our own cognition is one possibility among many. The octopus asks us to expand our definitions, question our assumptions, recognize intelligence wherever it emerges. That's the gift they offer, not tentacles and camouflage, but perspective. Evening has settled over Puget Sound. The water darkens from grey to slate to near black. Surface light fades, but bioluminescence begins. Tiny sparks from plankton disturbed by current. Brief glows that trace invisible water movement. Our octopus emerges from her den as twilight deepens. This is her hour. Predators that hunt by sight grow less effective. Her own vision, adapted to low light, gives her advantage. She moves along familiar routes, arms sampling rock and kelp. A small crab, detected, pursued, captured. She carries it back toward the den, not to eat immediately, but to cache. Later, when full darkness comes, she'll hunt again. Shaksa. The kelp forest sways in gentle current. Fronds catch what little light remains, turning it golden green. Fish school in the canopy, settling into night positions. A harbour seal passes overhead, silhouette against the surface, hunting the last light. She watches it pass. No threat now. Its attention is elsewhere, focused on fish. She continues her patrol. A young octopus, barely adult, crosses her territory. She doesn't approach, doesn't threaten. The young one is small, no competition. It moves through quickly, seeking its own den, its own hunting grounds. She tracks it with one eye until it disappears into the kelp. Currents shift with the tide. Water moves differently now, carrying different scents. She adjusts her position, moving to where the current brings information. Chemical traces of prey, distant disturbances, the signatures of a reef coming alive with nocturnal activity. A rockfish settles into a crevice for the night, tucking itself into stone. A lingcod slides from hiding, beginning its own hunt. A moon snail glides across sand below, slow and methodical. Each animal following rhythms millions of years old. Foim. The octopus finds a flat stone suitable for her purpose. She carries it, awkward, heavy, but manageable. Back at the den, she positions it at the entrance, adjusting the angle. The opening narrows. Better protection, better control of what can enter. She settles behind the stone, arms coiled loosely. Her mantle pulses with respiration. Eyes remain open, tracking movement in the water beyond her den. Night deepens. Stars become visible through the water's surface, distorted and dim, but present. The moon hasn't risen yet. This is the darkest hour when the reef transforms into a different place. Bioluminescence increases. A comb jelly drifts past, trailing light. Small fish flash when startled. The octopus herself, if disturbed, might trigger luminescence in the plankton around her, a betrayal of position she carefully avoids. She's learned to move through bioluminescent water without triggering it. Slow movements, minimal disturbance. The water remains dark around her while other animals leave glowing trails. A ratfish appears, ghostly pale, eyes enormous. It hunts by smell and touch, probing the bottom with sensory barbels. The octopus watches it pass. Not prey, not threat. Simply another resident of the night reef. Somewhere distant, a whale's call resonates through the water. Low frequency, felt more than heard. Orcas perhaps, or a grey whale migrating south. The sound carries for kilometers, connecting animals that will never meet. The octopus doesn't respond to it. The frequency is too low, the distance too great. But the water carries information in many forms: pressure waves, chemical gradients, temperature shifts. The reef is never truly silent. She tastes the water constantly. Kelp decay, fish mucus, crab molts, the mineral signature of rock. Each chemical tells a story. This direction leads to feeding grounds, that direction to open water. This scent means recent disturbance. Hours pass. The moon rises, casting dim light through the water. Shadows shift. The landscape transforms again, familiar rocks becoming strange geometries in moonlight. The octopus has been still for some time now, conserving energy. Her last hunt was successful. Her den is secure. The immediate tasks of survival are met. This is as close to peace as an octopus knows. Fed, safe, aware, but not threatened. The moment stretches. A small octopus, perhaps the one from earlier, has taken a den nearby, 30 meters distant. Too far for competition, close enough to be occasionally visible. She notes its presence without concern. The reef can hold both. Through current brings the scent of something dead. A fish, perhaps, or a seal carcass. Too far to investigate now. If it's still there tomorrow, she might explore. But distance and darkness make it a problem for later. The tide continues its change. Water level drops slightly, reducing current strength. The kelp forest grows quieter. Fish settle deeper into their hiding spots. The reef exhales. She shifts position slightly, adjusting her arms. One arm extends beyond the den entrance, suckers sampling passing water. The others remain coiled, ready but resting. This is her territory. These rocks, this kelp, this patch of ocean. She knows it intimately. Every crack that might hold a crab, every overhang that provides shelter, every route between hunting grounds. Tomorrow she'll patrol it again, check the same spots, follow similar patterns. The day after, the same. Routine punctuated by small variations, the constant work of survival. But for now, night. The water dark and quiet. The reef sleeping but not silent. Life continuing in slower rhythms. Stars wheel overhead. Tides shift. Seasons will change. She won't see many more. Her time is measured in months now, not years. But tonight she's alive, aware, complete. An octopus in her den, 8 arms thinking, skin reading the darkness, existing in a form of intelligence humans are only beginning to understand. The water moves around her. She moves with it, part of the current, part of the reef, part of the ocean's ancient rhythms. And the night continues, gentle and dark, carrying her toward whatever tomorrow brings. We began tonight with an arm thinking independently, making decisions without consulting the brain. We followed that thread through evolution, intelligence, camouflage, escape, relationship. Now we arrive at understanding, or the edge of it. The octopus remains fundamentally alien to us. 300 million years of separate evolution created a mind built on different principles. Where we centralize, it distributes. Where we rely on bones and structure, it flows. Where we invest in long life and learned culture, it burns bright and brief. Yet we recognize something familiar in octopus behavior. The problem solving, the memory, the individual personalities. Intelligence, regardless of architecture, creates patterns we can perceive. flexibility, learning, purpose. The octopus teaches us that minds need not look like ours to think. That consciousness, if octopuses possess it, can emerge from neural networks we barely understand. That intelligence is not a ladder with humans at the top, but a landscape with many peaks, each shaped by different pressures. 8 arms, each with a mind of its own, coordinated by a central brain that trusts more than it controls. This is the octopus's solution to the problem of survival. It works. The proof swims in every ocean, hides in every reef, demonstrates that there are many ways to be intelligent. The camouflage we've explored, chromatophores opening and closing in waves, iridophores reflecting, papillae rising, represents cognition made visible. The skin computes, the body thinks. The boundary between mind and flesh dissolves. We've watched octopuses carry coconuts, open jars, remember mazes, recognize individual predators. Each behavior reveals layers of capability we're still mapping. Each study raises new questions. Do they dream? The color changes during sleep suggests something. Neural processing, memory consolidation, perhaps experiences we have no words for. They cycle through patterns while unconscious, skin telling stories the octopus itself might not be aware of. The escape abilities, compression, jet propulsion, ink clouds, show bodies designed for flexibility in the most literal sense. An animal that can flow through any opening larger than its beak has redefined what trapped means. They teach us that constraints are often perceptual, that apparent barriers dissolve when you're willing to reshape yourself. The life cycle remains bittersweet. Such intelligence, such capability, compressed into years or months. The mother's final vigil, tending eggs while her body fails, is devotion at its most absolute. She gives everything so that the next generation might exist. And those young, scattered by currents, learning survival alone, each one rediscovering what octopuses are, what they can do. No inheritance except genetic, no teaching except experience. Every octopus an autodidact. Perhaps that's why individual variation is so pronounced. Each octopus learns slightly differently, develops unique strategies, builds personal relationships with its environment. They're shaped by experience because experience is all they have. The predators and partners we've met, morays, groupers, seals, sharks, form a web of relationship the octopus navigates with care. It knows who to avoid, who to signal, when to flee, when to freeze. This knowledge is earned, updated, essential. And humans, recent arrivals in the octopus's world, still learning how to think about these creatures. We've moved from monster myths to scientific respect, but we're not finished. Each discovery reshapes our understanding. The ethical questions linger. What do we owe an intelligent invertebrate? How do we balance traditional use with emerging knowledge? When does capability create responsibility? These aren't answered yet. Perhaps they can't be. Not fully. But asking them is progress. Recognizing octopus intelligence as something deserving consideration, even if we can't define its boundaries precisely, is a step. In tide pools and deep trenches, in tropical reefs and polar seas, octopuses continue their ancient strategies. They hunt, hide, solve problems, reproduce, die. They've been doing this since before vertebrates walked on land, and they'll likely continue long after we're gone. Their success isn't measured in civilization or technology, it's measured in persistence, adaptation, the quiet continuation of a lineage that found solutions different from ours and made them work. We circle back to that first image, an arm exploring a clamshell, thinking locally, acting independently. That arm is evolution's answer to a specific challenge: how to be intelligent without centralizing intelligence, how to think with your hands. The answer is the octopus. Distributed, flexible, brief, brilliant. Somewhere tonight, in every ocean, octopuses are emerging from dens. They're patrolling territories, hunting prey, avoiding predators. They're solving problems we'll never know about, making decisions we can't observe, living lives rich with experience despite their brevity. They don't need our understanding to continue, but our understanding enriches us. It expands what we know intelligence can be. It humbles our assumptions about thought, mind, awareness. The octopus offers no answers about consciousness or cognition's nature, but it offers questions, better questions than we knew to ask. It suggests possibilities we hadn't imagined. 8 arms, 3 hearts, blue blood, distributed mind. An animal that challenges categories, that forces us to think differently about thinking itself. As you settle into sleep tonight, let these images drift through your mind. Arms exploring independently, skin computing color, bodies flowing through impossible gaps. Let the octopus's world, dark reefs and gentle currents, the constant work of survival, carry you deeper into rest. Intelligence comes in many forms. The octopus reminds us that our form is just one, perhaps not even the strangest. The water moves, the reef breathes. The octopus, ancient and alien, continues its quiet existence. And we, recent observers of these things, rest in the knowledge that the ocean still holds mysteries, still produces wonders, still teaches us how much we have yet to learn. Let the current take you now. Let the darkness settle. The octopus asks nothing of you except this: sleep, knowing the world is stranger and richer than you imagined. The reef at night, arms thinking, minds distributed across bodies that flow like water. Rest with the wild.